Right. I've been keeping him going about this for quite a while. So before I start, before I say what I've got planned, there's a friend of Mr. and Mrs. McMordie who unfortunately couldn't be here today, and she's asked me to read something out for her. So, dear Emma and Paul, congratulations. So sorry I can't be there to celebrate your big day. I think of you both often and wish you all the luck and love in the world. Looking forward to seeing the photographs on Facebook, and I'll see you when I get back. And that's from Connie. For those of you who don't know, Connie's a good friend of Emma and Paul's, who is at the minute touring around Australia, probably having the time of her life. But she phoned me a few days ago and said how annoyed she was that she couldn't be here because she just really wanted to join in and share in the happiness that you two seem to exude effortlessly. It's, as Ken rightly said, almost sickening. But to what I've got planned, again, for those of you who don't know, Paul and I have been friends for as long as I can remember. We went to the same nursery school, the same primary school, same high school, went to art college together, and unfortunately for Paul, some of my earliest memories are of him. When we were kids, we were geeks, let's be honest. We could recite entire episodes of Red Dwarf. We watched things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy religiously. We would have sleepovers and listen to books on tape and do really sad, geeky stuff. But one of the things that we both had an affinity for was a comedy writer called Crawford Howard, or Crawford Hard, depending on where you're from. And this guy would write funny stories in rhyming verse. So I thought Paul would appreciate a bit of an effort to recreate that childhood indulgence and pay homage, if you like, to our long-lost innocence. Now please bear in mind that I do not consider myself to be a poet by any stretch of the imagination. But
that's okay.
If Paul's life were a poem, it wouldn't be a Yeats, Byron, or Wordsworth. It would use words like Nantucket and be overflowing with mirth. So should I start with the story of the stag?
Yay!
With Paul's exploits in Amsterdam dressed in drag, where there was smoking, singing and dancing, with Paul in a dress and a wig, leaping and prancing, standing in windows with his friends pointing outside, shouting, "You can't help feeling sorry for his soon-to-be bride." And there were strange things that happened on that weekend, things that I still struggle to try and comprehend. There was one of our number, and I'll not say who, indulged in something quite taboo. He was overexcited and he'd had too much to drink, and he ventured to this window but had a hasty rethink because what he saw did not please him at all. Turns out there were other dudes in dresses apart from him. I promised Paul I'd keep it clean and not say anything too obscene, but if you ask Glenn later, he knows what it is. So, I'll tell you the story of how Paul and I began, the story of how I came to be the best man. It was way back when, in the Barron Hall at nursery school, where I met Paul, and we were so cute, and innocent, and pure, and an ailment that which adolescence would cure. My adolescence started early for Paul and I. When asked to conform, we failed to comply. In primary school, we were caught smoking, unaware of the trouble that we were provoking. Not trying to hide, we stood outside, inhaling deeply and constantly choking. And while standing in front of the head teacher, man, young Paul and Tom stayed cool, because they had a plan. A scheme so devious it couldn't fail. The deceitful pair would tell a tall tale. So young Tom starts off, Sir, it was a fake cigarette, sir, from a joke shop. Nudging Paul to concur. But silent sobs is all that was heard. Paul's eyes had welled up and his vision had blurred. Under the pressure, Paul instantly cracked. And sadly, the truth did not take long to extract. So in the short time it took Paul to confess, my young mind couldn't handle the stress. And during the briefest interrogation of the nation, I began to visualize the cessation of our education. Expulsion was certain to my 8-year-old brain, and to argue with the principal would just be insane. So you can imagine how relieved I felt when no punishment whatsoever was dealt. You see, the headmaster approved of Paul's confession and decided to forget our small transgression. And from this story you can take what you want. Either Paul's a genius or an idiot savant. I still think the teacher would have believed a lie, but innocent crybaby Paul wouldn't give it a try. But whatever might be your point of view, from the story of Paul you can only construe that the truth will out, and there is no doubt. When lying, Paul has no follow-through. And honest to a fault is not a bad trait, especially when marrying your love and soulmate. No. Paul's most redeeming feature is his honesty, a quality I hope he passes to his progeny. But Paul with kids is a scary thought. The very idea leaves me distraught. The things I've seen this man get up to, things that I probably shouldn't really tell you, like stealing booze from our mum and dad and bunking off school when it was fun to be had. There was one night when we were especially pissed at a party playing Truth or Dare. We actually kissed. It was not my proudest moment. It has to be said.
Nor mine.
In fact, I still wake up at night screaming in bed. It was bad enough that the stubble rash stung, but the worst part was when he slipped me the tongue. I think he was trying in his way to impress me, but I still think to this day he would have tried to undress me. If I hadn't put a stop to that ill-thought-out game, we might have got naked with him screaming my name. It was vile and disgusting, but and I'm sure you'll disagree. All I can say is rather you than During our teenage years, hormones and huffs were rife, and I never would have thought he'd end up with a wife. But we stayed friends through high school, just about. At least we managed to avoid knocking each other out, because over the years we've had 1 or 2 fights, normally during very drunken nights. But the next day, with bodies fragile and sore, there's always apologies aplenty and hugs galore. And I think that's the true mark of love, the ability to scream and shout, and the next day you're able to forget about who said what and who was in the wrong. When you love someone, you can't stay mad for long. So please, keep in mind, Paul, that I love you a lot, especially when I make fun of your growing bald spots. Sorry. I had to. It wouldn't be fair if I didn't at least mention your thing. Especially considering you've had more than a smile at the expense of our lovely but balding friend Niall. And it will happen to me too someday, I'm sure. And when the time comes, there'll be jokes to endure. It is with great admiration, love and affection that I stand here today reciting this selection of amusing anecdotes and titillating tales of Paul's great successes and epic fails. And as for successes, your wife has to be the best, a statement to which no man can contest. Everyone here knows with Emma, you've struck gold.
Yeah.
And now I'll tell you all the story, if I may be so bold, of how these two idiots for years danced around each other when each was searching for their potential lover. It was at our college where Paul and Emma met, an event that no one will ever forget. There was a large contingent of students of art who placed bets as to when the flirting would start. And it wouldn't take long. They'd be on a pub crawl or at a party in the corner propped against a wall. And there'd be eyelashes batting, girlish giggles whilst chatting, big bashful blushes, and that was just Paul. It was clear to everyone with eyes to see if they just got together how happy they'd be. But they took their time and continued their dance, patiently waiting for the start of romance. In 2000 they met, at the start of the decade. It took many more years of them trying to evade the obvious satisfaction that could be seen in their mutual attraction and satisfaction and their flirting routine. But finally, Paul proposed on New Year's 2009 to a rousing chorus of "It's about
fucking time!"
And so we find ourselves here at the Old Inn to watch the happy couple's marriage begin. I don't think of it as losing a brother from another mother. I think of it as gaining a sister from another mister. And as tried and contrived as this may sound, there's someone out there who thinks this is profound. So all that is left is for me to wish you many happy days ahead. I love you both very much. Anything else can be left unsaid. So raise your glasses, one and all. Here's to the newlyweds. To Emma and Paul.
Thanks, folks. Right through the last 20 seconds.